Here's what nobody wants to admit. Retail is killing supplement brands. That's right. Every dollar that you spend getting into stores is a dollar that could have been spent building a real customer relationship. While traditional companies fight for shelf space, direct-to-consumer first brands are building empires. Let's get into it in today's episode. Welcome to Health Business Mastery, the Creative Thirst podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Hewitt. Most supplement companies think retail is the end game. Get into CVS, land a Walmart deal, celebrate the big win. This thinking is backwards, and it's costing supplement companies millions. Retail makes you a commodity. Your product sits next to 50 others on the same shelf. Price becomes the only difference between you and your competitors. You lose control of your message, your customer, your price, and ultimately your future. The truth nobody wants to hear is simple. Retail doesn't build brands. It destroys them. When you sell through retail, you're essentially renting shelf space to be ignored by customers who have too many choices and no reason to pick you over anyone else. To really make retail work, you have to have a brand first. Instead, a direct-to-consumer first approach is how to build a supplement brand and company in 2025 and for the next 20 years. Direct-to-consumer first doesn't mean online only. That's a common misconception that keeps companies stuck in old thinking. Direct-to-consumer first means building everything around direct customer relationships from day one. The traditional approach follows a predictable pattern. Make a product first, then find a distributor, then get into stores, then hope customers buy. This backward process puts the product before the customer. The direct-to-consumer first approach flips this entirely. You find customers first, build relationships with them, create products they actually want, then sell direct. Notice the difference? Direct-to-consumer first starts with customers, not products. This fundamental shift changes everything about how you build a business. When you sell through retail, you know nothing about your customers. CVS knows who bought your product. You don't. Target has the customer data. You get a check and a prayer that they'll reorder next month. Direct-to-consumer first brands know who buys their products, when they buy again, what else they want, how to reach them, and why they chose them over competitors. This data is worth more than any retail deal because it allows you to predict and influence future behavior. Think about the power difference. A retail brand hopes their product gets noticed on a crowded shelf. A direct-to-consumer first brand can send a personalized email to Sarah in Denver about her specific health goals at the exact moment she's most likely to buy. The retail brand is fishing with a net. The direct-to-consumer brand is using a laser-guided missile. Plus, retail margins are brutal, and the math doesn't lie. In the traditional retail path, if your cost per bottle is $10 and you sell to a distributor for $20, they sell to the store for $35, the store sells to customers for $60, and your profit is $10. That's a 50% margin on a good day. In the direct-to-consumer path, that same $10 product sells directly to customers for $40, giving you a $30 profit. That's 3 times more profit per sale, which means you can afford to spend more on customer acquisition, better ingredients, superior packaging, and still make more money than your retail competitors. This margin advantage compounds over time. While retail brands scrape by on thin margins, direct-to-consumer first brands can invest in growth, innovation, and customer experience. The gap widens every quarter until it becomes impossible for retail brands to compete. But what about the customer? Retail supplement companies have no relationship with customers. They make products, stores sell them, and that's the end of the story. There's no ongoing connection, no way to build loyalty, and no opportunity to understand evolving customer needs. Direct-to-consumer first brands build real relationships through email subscribers, social media followers, text message lists, community members, and repeat customers. These relationships are recession-proof assets that appreciate in value over time. When the economy crashes, retail sales plummet. Direct-to-consumer brands with strong customer relationships continue to grow because trust and loyalty don't disappear during hard times. The relationship advantage extends beyond sales. When you have direct customer relationships, you get real-time feedback on products, immediate notice when something goes wrong, and constant insights into what to build next. Retail brands learn about problems months later through distributor reports. Direct-to-consumer brands know about issues within hours. Yet every business owner dreams of the big retail partnership. Now there's a time where retail does make sense. Once you have built a brand and are doing $10 million or more in revenue and have tapped out your existing marketing channels, then it makes sense to expand into retail. Even though most of these dreams turn into nightmares that destroy companies instead of building them. First, you have no negotiating power without proven customer demand. Retailers know you need them more than they need you, so they dictate terms that favor them at your expense. Second, you become price-focused, because when you're sitting next to 20 competitors, price becomes the only differentiator customers can see. Third, retail strips away your brand story. Your carefully crafted message about ingredients, mission, and values gets reduced to a few bullet points on a tiny label. Fourth, you can't pivot quickly because retail moves slowly while markets change fast. By the time you realize something isn't working, you're stuck with 6 months of inventory and shelf space commitments. Here's the thing about winning supplement brands. They all follow a specific formula that starts with customer discovery. Step 1 is picking a specific customer. Not everyone or people who want to be healthy. That's too generic. You need to get specific, like 30-year-old working moms who struggle with afternoon energy crashes. Supercharge this by narrowing in on an underserved market. Step 2 is going where these customers already spend their time. Find them on social media, join their communities, and understand their real problems, not the problems you think they have. Most supplement companies fail because they solve problems that don't exist or aren't painful enough to pay for. Then you can sell direct from day one and own the customer relationship from the very beginning. Getting into a retail store is more for expansion, not a foundation, and only after you've proven demand through direct sales. Direct-to-consumer companies create content around the products in order to build audience trust. Think about it this way. If you're selling a sleep supplement, you'd be best to create long-form copy, like an article about sleep that builds trust with an underserved audience of people struggling with stress and insomnia. Clearly show you understand their specific problems, then offer the perfect sleep supplement for that exact audience. Content builds trust before the sale happens. When someone has been reading your sleep tips for 6 months and they get a direct ad to buy your sleep supplement for 10% off, they're already predisposed to buy because you've been helping them for free. Traditional companies try to sell to strangers. Direct-to-consumer companies sell to friends. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The strongest direct-to-consumer supplement brands don't just sell products. They tap into the 4 buying forces of selling supplements using trust, belief, desire, and hope to build sustainable growth. Speaking of sustainable growth, direct-to-consumer brands think subscription from day one because the math is absolutely irrefutable. Acquiring customers is expensive, but keeping them is profitable. Subscriptions also provide predictable revenue that makes business planning possible. Instead of guessing how much you'll sell next month, you know because most of your revenue is already committed through subscription customers. This predictability allows for better inventory management, cash flow planning, and strategic decision making. Another huge advantage that direct-to-consumer brands have is personalization. Retail makes personalization impossible because everyone gets the same product at the same price regardless of their individual needs or circumstances. This one-size-fits-all approach satisfies no one completely and creates opportunities for brands that can personalize the experience. Direct-to-consumer brands can personalize everything from products based on quiz answers to pricing based on loyalty to messages based on behavior to timing based on preferences. This personalization increases conversion rates because customers feel understood and valued rather than treated like anonymous transactions. The personalization advantage grows stronger over time as you collect more data about each customer. What started as basic demographic information evolves into detailed preference profiles that allow for increasingly sophisticated personalization. Eventually, you know your customers better than they know themselves. Now, you might be wondering why traditional companies struggle so much to adapt to this new reality. Traditional supplement companies are trapped by thinking that worked in the past but fails in the present. They believe bigger distribution equals more success, that retail validation equals brand strength, that volume equals profitability, and that more stores equal more customers. The reality is completely different. Better relationships equal more success. Customer love equals brand strength. Margins equal profitability, and more engagement equals more customers. This thinking gap creates massive opportunities for direct-to-consumer brands, while traditional companies fight over declining retail space. Most traditional companies can't make this transition because their entire business model depends on retail relationships. Their pricing, packaging, marketing, and operations are all optimized for retail success. Switching to direct-to-consumer requires rebuilding the entire company from scratch, which few established companies have the courage to attempt. There's also a speed advantage that's absolutely crucial in today's market. Retail moves like a glacier, while markets change at internet speed. Product development in retail takes years. Getting on shelves takes months. And making changes requires renegotiating with dozens of partners. By the time a retail brand responds to market changes, the opportunity has already passed. Direct-to-consumer brands move like startups because they control their entire distribution chain. They can test products in weeks, launch in days, pivot in hours, and scale in real time. This speed advantage allows them to capture trends while retail brands are still planning their response. Speed also applies to customer feedback and product improvement. When a direct-to-consumer brand launches a product, they get immediate feedback from customers and can make improvements for the next batch. Retail brands might not learn about product issues for months, and fixing them requires going through multiple intermediaries. But even smart direct-to-consumer companies make mistakes that slow growth. The biggest mistake is trying to be everywhere at once instead of picking one platform, dominating it completely, then expanding to others. Companies spread themselves too thin and fail to gain traction anywhere. The second mistake is competing on price instead of value and relationship. Direct-to-consumer brands should never compete on price, because that's a race to the bottom that retail giants will always win. The third mistake is ignoring lifetime value and focusing only on getting customers instead of keeping them. The fourth mistake is copying traditional marketing instead of thinking like a media company that happens to sell supplements. So the question isn't whether you need retail to scale. You don't up to a certain point. The question is when and how you should approach it. The wrong approach is using retail to find customers, which puts you at the mercy of retailers who control access to your potential buyers. The right approach is using customers to get into retail. When you have proven demand from direct to consumer sales, retailers beg you to come in because you're bringing guaranteed sales rather than hoping for them. You have negotiating power, you can set terms, and you maintain control over your brand and pricing. This customer-first approach to retail ensures that retail becomes an expansion strategy rather than a survival strategy. You're adding distribution channels from a position of strength rather than desperation, which completely changes the dynamic and the terms you can negotiate. And you have to be ready for the investment reality when it comes to retail, because this might surprise you. Traditional supplement companies need massive investment to compete in retail because they have to fund inventory, distribution, marketing, and operations before seeing any return. The minimum viable investment for a retail supplement brand is typically several $1,000,000. Direct-to-consumer brands can start with almost nothing. A website costs $100 per month. An email platform costs $50 per month. Social media ads can start at $500 per month. And first inventory might cost $9,000. Total startup costs can be under $20,000, which means almost anyone can test the market before making major commitments. This low barrier to entry allows for rapid experimentation and iteration without risking huge amounts of capital. You can test products, audiences, and messages cheaply before scaling what works and abandoning what doesn't. And when it comes time to sell your company, direct-to-consumer brands command higher valuations because they own customer relationships rather than just manufacturing capabilities. Buyers pay premiums for customer data, subscription revenue, direct relationships, and technology platforms because these assets generate predictable future cash flows. Retail brands primarily have products and inventory, which are easily replicated by competitors. Direct-to-consumer brands have customer lists, engagement data, and recurring revenue streams that can't be easily duplicated. This fundamental difference explains why direct-to-consumer brands often sell for 3 to 5 times higher multiples than comparable retail brands. Here's the thing. The future is already decided. Every successful supplement brand will be direct-to-consumer first within 10 years because the economics and customer expectations are moving in that direction. The companies that adapt early will dominate their categories. The companies that resist will become private label manufacturers for Amazon and other platforms. This transition is already accelerating. Younger consumers today buy directly from brands they follow on social media. They will all age up into the sweet spot of 45 years old and older that buy the most supplements. Traditional retail is becoming less relevant every quarter. So here's your decision point. You have 2 choices facing you right now. Choice 1 is to keep playing the old retail game, fighting for shelf space, competing on price, and hoping for the best while your margins shrink and your competition grows. Choice 2 is to build a direct-to-consumer brand. Own your customers, control your destiny, and win the future while your competitors struggle with the limitations of retail dependence. The market is deciding for you whether you like it or not. Direct-to-consumer brands are winning customers, profits, and valuations, while traditional companies are losing all 3. The gap widens every quarter, and catching up becomes harder for companies that wait. As a result, the supplement industry is splitting into 2 distinct groups. The first group are companies that own customer relationships and companies that make products for other people's customers. The first group builds wealth and creates lasting value. The second group struggles for survival in an increasingly commoditized market. Which group do you want to be in? The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Your customers are already moving to direct-to-consumer brands with or without you. Creative Thirst is a direct response digital agency. We work with dietary supplement companies who are struggling to maximize the profitability of their funnels so they can scale. We've optimized many dietary supplement businesses. And in that time, we've uncovered the 3 critical funnels for success. You can get that free report by going to creativethirst.com. Scroll down to the appropriate section and click on the blue Get Your ebook button.